What's up again, everybody? The Road to Nationals season this year has officially concluded at the end of this past weekend, and boy was it one for the history books. I mean, during this season, we had Oldham reach Living Legend. We still don't quite know if Briar is Living Legended out, though by tomorrow, when I post this, it might actually have come to fruition. We don't know if she has 998 points. We don't know if she has exactly 1,000 points, but boy was it exciting. And yet, we knew a couple of these big heroes were going to make big splashes, take a lot of wins, and there are a few heroes that really showed up, showed out, and proved that they had what it takes to take down their own events. So today I'm going to show you 3 decks that won Road to Nationals in their respective locations, and they may not be the heroes that you think. So let's start with that big guy right there. This list is actually covered in depth in a really wonderful deck tech over on Mansant's YouTube channel. If you don't know Mansant, check it out. I'll put probably a link in the pop-up up there to this exact deck tech, this breakdown of this deck. But this is Riptide, and it's like aggro Riptide. And I've heard this deck described a lot by a variety of people as sort of like a Briar, a pseudo Briar playing deck, where you're playing a lot of zero cost attacks, zero cost pumps, and you're pushing way big, damage across the board. You can also go wide a good bit with like things like Falcon Wing and of course Bolton Shot as well, Ravenous Rabble, but you have like ways to go tall with all of these buffs. You have ways to go wide with a couple of these attacks, including Enlightened Strike, and you can finish off with like Codex of Frailty into a Death Touch. But this is a very aggressive red line deck. I mean, if you look at the breakdown at the very top, 46 reds, only 6 yellows, and 5 blues. This is the equipment suite. And I did put down here what I presumed to be, or actually no, this was actually the sideboard that was listed. Again, this list is actually posted by the winner, and he did a nice breakdown of the deck on the channel over at Mansant. I think it's like youtube.com/Mansant. So you can check that out. Like I said, I'll put a link to it. But this is a deck that I actually planned on doing a bigger kind of overall deck archetype breakdown on, because this list, believe it or not, is similar to several lists that were actually floating at the top tables of the calling in Baltimore about 2 months ago now, or a month or two ago. There were a variety of sort of red line Riptide lists that were actually floating around at top tables, and it's one that I think I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna compare this list with those lists and talk about like what the core of the deck is, how it plays, what it wants to do, and why it functions, because there's a lot of people that think Riptide is just bad, and well, there's some people that are trying to prove them wrong. So this is the first list that if you're looking to pick up something new, I'm just gonna say it. This is a full-in, all-in TCG player. You can buy this entire deck for a brand new hero to the game that is an eternal format game for $750, and I'm going to tell you right now, like 300 of that is this stupid Crown of Providence, which is kind of crazy. And then you're probably also paying for Trench, but like you can build this deck right here for pennies on the dollar. I mean, your most expensive cards, if we're talking price-wise, your most expensive cards are Remorseless and Enlightened Strike, which is really, honestly, surprisingly easy to put together. And your Vambrace is like $20, $30. Dreadbore is cheap. Like you're really just paying for Crown of Providence. This is a budget deck, like classic constructed dream. Drop this, play something slightly different. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you could afford the old Arcanite Skullcap. Maybe that's come down a bit. I'm not sure. But you swap that out. If you're looking for a budget list, this is honestly probably a great place to start. And it's an underrated deck that has put up a couple of like high finishes. And this, of course, a list that just wins. Go wide, go tall, play Codex. Oh, this is probably the other pricey card right here, Codex of Frailty. That is the other kind of pricey card. But man, I'll tell you what, this is a great place to start in a class that's getting fed and a class that is well served over, or is going to be well served, I think, going forward as well. The second deck I think I want to show you is probably the one that threw me the most, and it's this one. I built this out for David. I'm going to say it's David Dawood. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but congratulations on winning with this absolute banger of a deck. This is insane. I got this list, by the way, off of the Fab TCG website. Here, let me show you. If you go to Fab TCG and you go to Game and you go to, oh, sorry, no, it's Events, and you go to Deck Lists. If you go to Deck Lists, you get this page here. I'll zoom in a little bit, make it easier to see. If you go to this deck list, you can actually see the finishes for these heroes. And so what I did is I just went to here and I was looking at some of the lists that had been posted up till now, and I just built it based on this. So this was actually posted on May 27th. Nevertheless, if we go back to the list, this is not what you would normally expect for an Arachne. Well, I say that. Maybe it is, because here's the thing about Arachne. The biggest and best finishes for Arachne lately have not been like aggro or just trying to like mill your opponent. They've been control Arachne. So very defensive playing, very careful, very blocking focused, and you just swing with advantage whenever you have like cards in your hand that can you don't have to technically like block with. And that style has surprisingly worked. But then you look at this list, and I want to show you this list because it is a lot more red line than I expected. This is 46 reds, 13 yellows, and 10 blues. And there are your staple defensive tools. You can still play this very defensively. You've got Fate for Scenes, you've got Frailty Traps, you have Sigil of Solace, you have Sink Belows, right? You have even 2 red unmovables. So this can play that way. And it can even, you can play Remembrances as well. It's got Heart of Fandal, it's got Plague Hive. And it has the equipment suite you would expect. It's got your Black Text, it's got your Flick Knives, which is a great little card now. Fandal's Spring Tunic, Mask of Perdition. I mean, it's everything you would think that you would see at first. But then you dig a little deeper and you look at it, this can actually play rather aggressively. I mean, we're playing Red Annihilate the Arms. We have Cut to the Chase. We have a rainbow version of Shred. Every copy of Shred, which I am going to assume that some of these are sideboard in, like, so you bring in any number of Shreds. Same thing with a couple of these. But like this entire deck could technically be played a bit more aggressively if you wanted to, and try to push damage. I mean, it's running Death Touch. That is not something that you would necessarily run if you were trying to play full control. Everything blocks 3, everything plays really defensively. This is not the card you would include for that. But because we now have access to Codex of Frailty, we can, as Arachne, play a little bit more aggressively with Codex into Death Touch after some sort of a turn where we, maybe cut to the chase on top of like Fleece the Frail, or really Plunder the Poor is a great one. You go Plunder the Poor, you buff it, you snap it off with your Black Text, and then you follow that up with like Codex into Death Touch. I mean, like, you can actually play a lot more aggressively now than you could back when this hero was spoiled. And yet you can also pivot into the more defensive options. I mean, I love the inclusion even of Imperial Warhorn to like play against like the random Icelander or Briar. You can play this against Briar, by the way, if you didn't think about that. You can just blow up their Channel Mat Heroic, which is pretty spicy. This is a really cool list, and actually after building this is one that I want to try out a lot, because the idea of just like playing defensively and then just coming in with like an Eradicate and then just waiting for your Eradicates to kind of like all go to the graveyard so that you can remembrance all your Eradicates back and then just go for broke. I wonder if there's something there. I think that's fun. Nevertheless, you can also play your 1x Pummel, which is definitely a sideboard card. It's just so funny, and it feels like it's got a lot of tools as well. So I really like I really like this list, and congratulations, David, for picking up the win. Dawood, I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. But nevertheless, let's talk about our third list, and that is Azalea. Now, I thought about where I was going to go with this third list. The Azalea list that's posted right now on Fab TCG is really cool, and that's the one we're going to talk about right here. And it's basically everything you would expect for Azalea. But if you haven't really picked up Azalea yet, it's worth considering. Again, this one's pretty cheap. I mean, if you're looking at the price-wise, $810, and a lot of that is your equipment. Like, you're looking at some of these equipment pieces like Fandel Spring Tunic, and the price is just going to be really high for that, unfortunately. But you also have Enlightened Strike, and then you look at the rest of this, and you're like, okay, that's not too bad. You got your Codex of Frailties, but outside of that and those couple of cards that I mentioned, this is a pretty cheap overall deck, and it's pretty easy to put this together. And yet, this just works. And I love the inclusion of Down and Dirty. It's a card that I really think is going to be huge going forward. The fact that you can just play this in your deck. In fact, I've started including this in my Blitz decks, in some of my Blitz decks. You can play this in your deck, and you never have to worry about where it is because it can block from Arsenal, it can block from hand, and it can pop anything you want. It could pop against Dromai, it could pop against the upcoming Prisms. This is a card that's really going to skyrocket in value, I think, and be very good and very highly played if the meta dictates it, and I think it might. I almost put the Azuri deck on here, but here's the thing about Azuri. I think Azuri is no longer overperforming. I think what we think now with Azuri is that we expect some Azuris to actually just do well. And Azuri is one of those things I have to sit down and give you my thoughts in a longer pace of a video, because I think Azuri is really starting to show up. And Azalea is kind of what we expected Azuri to be in this meta. Well, I should say that the other way. Azuri is kind of what we expected Azalea to be, and Azalea hasn't really stepped up as far as at least as I expected it to be. And yet here is a winning list, and it's about going tall and dominating. We've got these Battering Bolts and Down and Dirties. These are sideboard cards. I would say Frailty Trap, probably a sideboard card as well. But this is another very red line list. This is a 48 reds list, and it goes wide if you want to with Bolt and Shot, but then it really just tries to figure out how to dominate you and take you out. I bet you Endless Arrow is actually probably one of those kind of pseudo sideboard cards that you would really want to find and prioritize in like the Dromai matchup. But then you just got buffs, and red in the ledgers. Buffs. And of course your Codex of Frailties as well. Tar Pit Trap, probably a sideboard card as well. But you got all these buffs, all these ways to set the top of your deck so that you can use the Azalea effect to swap it in. Whatever the top of your deck is, give it Dominate and push major damage. And honestly, it just works. It's a little bit under right now, like the power level compared to like Alexi. But I do think as the meta changes, I think things are going to really shift. And it all, of course, depends on what we see from the next Dusk Till Dawn set. But these are 3 lists that you can take to the bank and run with them. Congratulations, Gregory, for picking up your Road to Nationals win with this list. I think it's a really good starting point for new players to pick up some classic constructed lists here. And these are 3 great ones. I think all of these are worth maybe like, a little bit more exploration and diving in. And maybe we see these 3 heroes start to improve over time and fix their matchups. But maybe underrated, maybe overperformed, but got the win at the Road to Nationals tournament they played in. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more little breakdowns of lists that are doing well, let me know that in a comment below. I really want to hear what you like to see and what you enjoy. Did you just enjoy sitting back and listening to me talk about like random cards? If you did, press the button, make the number go slightly higher. And if you're a patron supporter, you are quite awesome. You're so awesome, I'm going to send you this Azuri Switchblade because that card's real cool. And on the back, it's like a black and white with a red's like Sin City splash. That's pretty fun. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.